Hello, this is a walkthrough for the DeckStorage website. Starting out, let's just pull the site up and we'll run through the basic functionality, what it is, you can do with it, how to get around. So this is our simple landing page, embedded a video for a background, and created a nav bar, which always links back to the home page. Where you can sign up, log in, or use a Facebook login via OmniAuth. So sign up, it's a fairly simple process. Username, email, password. We give some little blurbs here, about the size of the password. We've also got some alerts set up in case the validations fail. So if I just click create my account without having entered in the information, it pops up and says, hey, you can't do this. You've got stuff here that's stopping this record from being saved. So let's just make one real quick. Test and test@email.com and password. Okay, so that created my user, gave me an alert, says, hey, it was user created successfully. Great. So this is test, and give them a password. And now here we are. We've logged in. We can go back to the home page. We can go to our profile page, which gives us an index of all of our cards, decks rather. And so we're just going to make a deck to give you an idea. So it created the deck, and we are now on that deck's show page. As you can see up here by the URL, we're in users 3, decks 5. Okay. Now, one thing that I've also done is stop it from allowing you to go to a different user, right? If you're logged in, you can't see someone else's stuff. So back here in my deck, I'm going to add some cards. So just card 1, whatever, card 2, quantity. All right, and so on this deck show page, I've created a table which gives the name of all the cards, the quantity of all the cards, and then it also generates a delete button which will delete that record. So card 2 is now gone. Card 1 is still in the database, so it still displays here on my deck's show page. Go back to my profile. Hey, there's my deck. And if I want to delete it, same thing here. I can delete that out, and that deck is now gone. Okay. And then I log out, and it removes my ID from the session. And next thing you know, back at the home page. So let's just real quick pop on the Facebook login just to show that that also works. So here we are. We're in Facebook, and here is the decks that are already on there. All right, and that's it. So let's take a look at the code. So here is our layout, application layout. So it's got my header, and then in here up at the top, I have a partial for navigation links. In these navigation links, that's where I have my nav bar, and it's set to look to see if there is a current user, which we'll go over in just a little bit, and if so, then you're going to do this path. If not, then you're doing this path for what to display in that nav bar. Then we have our content area of the page. First thing we're going to do is look to see, are there any errors that have been generated, and if so, go ahead and pop up an alert on there. Okay, and then we just yield to whatever else we're doing. Okay, so that's the basic application page. Running through the models, we've got a user, and so this user, we use the bcrypt gem with has secure password. We're saying that they have many decks and that they have many cards through decks. So we're using our decks model as a join table basically to get from users to cards. We do some common sense validations for name, email, and password. And then we've got a class method here which allows us to um, find or create that user based off of their Facebook authentication. Okay. The deck model, very simple. It's a join table basically. So it just has a name, belongs to a user, and has many cards. And this belongs to a deck, and it validates a name and a quantity for the card. In my controllers, application controller, I am setting my authentication, validation, protections. So in here I've got my before action of verify user is authenticated to make sure that only the people who are allowed access to that resource have access to that resource. So we are going to redirect otherwise. Okay, and the way that we see what the value of this user authenticated is we find out the Boolean value true or false of current user, and that's just saying is the user whose user ID that we're presenting the same as the session user ID key. If it is, that's the right person and they can access this resource. If not, then this would be evaluated to false, which would cause this redirect to happen, right? So if you're not the person you're supposed to be to access that resource, you get redirected back to the home page. My users controller, so because of that before action in my application controller, which everything else inherits from, I need to say, hey, I know I told you to verify a user every time, but for these specific actions, we're not verifying them. And the reason is that we are trying to create a record. So there is no resource that they are trying to access that they shouldn't, because the resource doesn't exist yet, right? So don't bump them to the landing page just because they haven't created their account yet. That's what they're trying to do. So we skip that before action, and we would go to our login or new page depending. So if it is a sign up page, then we're going to use this users new to do our routing, and we're going to go to our users new view. And so this is the sign up page, right? So that's this right here. So we create a form for our user. We've got our H1 tag up there. We create a form for our user. And the first thing we're doing is looking to see, okay, does that user have any errors on them right now? If so, pop it up, right? And so that's what causes this to pop up when I just click on here without having entered in the right information, right? So assuming that they enter in information that's correct, we're down here where we have created some form groups which will create the params that we need, basically saying username, email, password. That allows us to use that data in our create action down here. And I don't know why this is all extra spaced, but okay. There, that's better. So we use these params that are created here, name, email, password, and we are using those to instantiate a new user. And then down here, we're using some basic info to say, hey, if if that user record saves, which means it passed all its validations, it has the name, the email, and the password the way it needs to be. It's not a user that's already in the database. It's not an email that's already in the database. Then we're going to pop in here to our redirect path to log in, and it's basically going to just go, boop, there you go, logged in. And you know, I think actually thinking about it, if you've just created it, why make you log in right away? Why not just go to user path of user and say user was created successfully? Yeah, I like that. I like that better. And if it's not something that you can save, then you just redirect to your new action, and you generate those user errors. Okay, so let's see. Test2 at email.com. Go to password. Okay. So they still need to go user or login path. All right, well, it was a nice idea. Okay. Okay, well, that's there. Okay, so we've created our user, and then we go to the login path, and that's actually now hitting our session controller, because we are creating a new session when we log in. We are saving the information of the user's ID to the session hash, and that's what allows us to go from page to page without having to resend every single piece of information, and also to make sure that we are who we say we are. So we're in our session. We go to the new one, and that is here. So again, if we've tried to log in and we had some errors, then we have our errors pop up. Otherwise, we're rendering this form partial, and on this form partial, it's going to create a form which basically gives us the same data as when we logged in, or when we signed up rather, to log in. So we're able to create our params the way we want. The one difference here is if you look at the name, this one is just name, and this one, was username. It's because we're not trying to create our params the same way. If you look at our controller, this one is looking for user's username, and this one is just looking for name. All right. And that allows us to log in or create a user without automatically logging in or causing issues, right? Okay, so we've got our user created, and then we're going to go to our user show page, right, which is this right here. And so we are rendering our index page for our decks. So we render this info. So this gives us our deck name. It gives us a table, right, with our columns, deck name, and delete, and our rows are given by iterating over the user.decks array. So that gives us this. Now, again, there's no deck, so there's nothing to iterate over, but we saw those earlier. Then from the deck, we go to, let's just add a deck one. We go to our deck show page, and on our deck show page, again, we create a table that has all that info, and we have a button to add a card, which goes to our cards new. right here, which is going to render this partial, and that partial again will pop out errors if there are any. Otherwise, it's going to give us our name and quantity fields in the form. We fill that out, hit submit. It gives us our info on our card, which is then iterated over on our deck show page right here. And that's how we display our decks, our cards, our profiles. And that's it. That's the site. That's everything in a nutshell. Thanks.